Buenos días.
Good morning to you all, and thank you very much for coming today. And I would like to thank the Director General for being here with us today as well. This workshop, How to Support MSMEs, a sharing of national, regional and multilateral experiences, is an initiative taken by the informal group of Friends of MSMEs at the WTO, which is made up of 28 members of the organization from different regions, with different levels of development and with different sized economies. The very membership of this group is one of its advantages because it enables it to work on ideas and inclusive proposals which take on board the very diversity of the WTO membership. I would first like to thank the panelists and moderators who are going to be speaking today. I wish to thank the members of delegations, the Secretariat, experts from both the public and private sector and international organizations. I would particularly like to welcome those who have come to join us from Capital. Today we will have 22 speakers. Most of them will be with us today, but we will also be hearing some speakers on video conference. We'd also like to thank the 5 ambassadors to the WTO who agreed to moderate the different panels we will be running today. The objective of our workshop is to have an exchange of points of view and have a conversation on the development of MSMEs, to gain greater knowledge on the challenges and main problems and obstacles they face, both at national and international level. In particular, those MSMEs that are in developing countries and LDCs, and see and how these obstacles are being overcome in different places. We are concerned that MSMEs, which on average are 95% of the companies in our countries, are still marginalized in international trade, and something could be done to increase their productivity. That is why the group of Friends of MSMEs wished to have an in-depth discussion, a responsible discussion and a sustained one on the participation of this type of company in both regional and global markets, and identify elements within this context, that is the context of the WTO, which could contribute to strengthen MSMEs, respecting the difference in focus, size and levels of development of their members. To support MSMEs is to support development. And your presence here today at this workshop reaffirms that we are on the right road and that is a topic of interest to all. That is why our efforts aim at creating a space within the WTO to deal with this issue amongst ourselves and to reach the necessary consensus to enable us to make progress. Therefore, the group has circulated a draft text for a possible ministerial decision to be adopted at the 11th Ministerial Conference in Buenos Aires, which establishes a work program for MSMEs in the WTO. The document is job/GC/147. As you will see, the proposal does not entail negotiations or the creation of regulations, but it's only the idea is to just have a working area where we could all participate so as to be able to deal with the subject. There will be an informal open-ended meeting to present this proposal in more detail. It will take place on the 6th of November, Monday 6th of November at 10 o'clock in this same room. And I would like to hasten to say that you are, of course, all invited. Of course, I hope that today and that our exchange of opinions that we will also be having tomorrow, Wednesday, will also be very productive. I invite you to be proactive here and that we really get the best out of this workshop. Our work will contribute to developing this issue, and this is a sector of the economy which cannot be ignored but really must be enhanced and at all levels. Thank you very much for attending. And we are now going to hear the Director General of the WTO, Mr. Roberto Azevedo, who has been very generous with his time and has made it possible to come and join us this morning and address us. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Casanueva, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very pleased to be with you today. And so from the outset, let me thank the Friends of MSMEs for the kind invitation and for organizing this event and this conversation. Over the past months, we have seen a high level of activity from this group. In particular, this is the third event hosted by the Friends of MSMEs in less than 6 months. And I understand that there has been a pretty good level of engagement, and I think that this is very positive. These conversations play a very, very important part in helping to bring the MSME perspective into the wider trade debate. And I have to say it is fantastic that we have with us some representatives from capitals. I think this dialogue can only move in the right direction, and it can only make enough progress if it is well informed. Now, of course, the perspective from capitals is as fundamental as the perspectives that can be found at a more international global level. And why do I say that? Because I'm absolutely convinced, I'm sure all of you are as well, that MSMEs play a very big economic role, both domestically and internationally. They are the backbone of many economies. I would say almost all economies, but I won't go that far, representing more than 90% of all companies worldwide, and accounting for 60% of employment. In some countries, even 90% of employment, so it varies a bit from country to country. They are also major employers of women and young people, and they are a key driver of innovation as well. Yet, their participation in world trade does not reflect fully their importance domestically. In developing countries, for example, exports represent less than 10% of MSME's total sales. Clearly, there's scope to do more, helping MSMEs to join trade flows in greater numbers will go a long way to making the trading system more inclusive and improving the lives of individuals and communities around the world. I have no doubts of that at all. Our discussions here can help to raise awareness of the obstacles that MSMEs face. Over the course of these debates that we've been having here, we've had a chance to highlight a range of barriers that affect MSMEs' participation in international trade, and there are many different types. I'll quote just a few. I think we begin with the lack of appropriate information, the lack of skills, also difficulty in accessing trade finance, burdensome customs procedures, high fixed costs. The smaller the companies, the bigger the challenges. For the bigger corporations, the bigger companies, the multinationals, all those things that I mentioned end up as a line on the spreadsheet, as a cost. For small and medium enterprises, that is not a cost. That is sometimes a deal maker or a deal breaker. Yeah. So if we want MSMEs to trade more, we need to understand better what is standing in the way. So this is very important. We also need to focus our minds on ensuring that MSMEs get the support that they need. And that's what this workshop is all about. It's actually quite an innovative event. You have brought together a wide range of experts from both domestic, regional, and international organizations, from the public and the private sectors. Over the next 2 days, you'll have the opportunity to discuss your experiences and share success stories. I hope that this can help spark new ideas, new approaches to tackle the obstacles that MSMEs face. In fact, I'm very glad that many of the MSMEs conversations are moving to a more solution-oriented mode. And I've been hearing a lot of interesting and practical ideas over the last few months about what could be done to help these companies to trade. I'm sure that this workshop will be an important addition to those efforts, and that the WTO, I want to assure you, has not been sitting idle on this issue. Actually, we have been taking some important steps to respond to some of the challenges that MSMEs face. Initiatives like the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement will have a huge impact in cutting trade costs for MSMEs. I could also point to the capacity building support that we deliver at a number of fronts, also together with partners like the ITC and UNCTAD. There is also the work of the enhanced integrated framework in a number of other areas, as well as other activities in different parts of this House. I have focused on these elements on previous occasions, on things that the WTO does. So today, I'd like to do something slightly different and highlight a few other aspects of our work. I think the first one is access to information. And this is vital for all businesses, but as usual, the bigger companies have greater capacity to manage this challenge, and by increasing access for all, MSMEs stands to benefit the most. So we're working with the ITC and UNCTAD to develop a platform to centralize relevant trade-related information. For example, rules and regulations on exports, going down all the way to details on specific products in specific markets. So I look forward to build on this cooperative effort between our institutions. I have to say, this is a huge amount of data and information. I don't have to tell you, the more ambitious we are with this, the more this is going to require time and efforts, but we are committed to that, us and the other two partners. At the WTO itself, we're also working on an open data initiative to improve the architecture of our data and the access to this data. And the initiative aims to better integrate the WTO databases and information systems. You would be surprised, but we have so much information, but they're not necessarily compatible. They don't talk to each other. So that's what we're trying to ensure now, is that this data is fully integrated. So this initiative will establish a single information point to simplify access of information stored at the WTO. And it will ensure that the data is open and that it can be easily retrieved by the users. In addition to that, we will work with interested members to apply open data principles themselves to facilitate precisely the access of trade-related information at a global scale, not only in the WTO, but with the other agencies and governments, institutions that collect that data as well. So this is not something that is going to happen immediately. It's not something that we'll have running next week. This is something that will be a long-term endeavor, but I believe that it's worth it. It can significantly contribute to making access to trade-related information easier, especially for MSMEs. So that's the first area that I wanted to highlight. The second one is on trade finance for MSMEs. The gap regarding trade finance, and I mean the demand for finance and the availability of the resources remains huge, especially for MSMEs. Globally, 58% of trade finance requests by MSMEs are rejected, against just 10% for multinational companies. So the playing field is not quite level here. And that, you know, that is important, not only because of that asymmetry, but also because most of the trade that you see happening in the world is financed somehow. I had access to some studies that show that 80% of global trade is financed in some way or another. So if 80% of trade is financed, that shows how important that is. And if 58% of requests by MSMEs are being rejected, we have a problem. And that's something that we need to address. So I have been working with a variety of partners to put a focus on this issue. This has been treated in the past, trade finance. When I got to the WTO, it was already on my predecessor's table, but not with the focus on MSMEs, and I think that's what we're trying to do now. In this last July, I met here at the WTO in my office upstairs with the development banks to examine what we could do to improve the supply of trade finance for smaller players. And I have been working closely with the CEO of the International Finance Corporation, Philippe Leroux, on this important issue. We met again earlier this month in Washington when I was there for the IMF and World Bank meetings, and we met to discuss what practical actions we could take. And of course, we need to maintain and even increase the support from the development banks to those economies where trade finance provision is weak, where the financial market is not so dense. But it is also clear, so it's not only about the banks, it is also, they don't have that much appetite, so we have to work on that. But it is also clear that we need to improve the regulatory dialogue because a lot of the problems lie with regulations. And we must ensure that, you know, after the financial crisis, the financial system took several very important measures, very important measures that were necessary after that. But we have to ensure that they do not have unintended harmful consequences for trade finance. And we will be pursuing this point over the coming weeks together with the IFC. So that's the second point. Finally, we're trying to capture some of the energy that we're seeing from the private sector itself. Business engagement in the WTO has soared over recent years, and one common theme in these conversations with the private sector has always been helping MSMEs to trade. We wanted to help highlight and deliver some of the great ideas that we have been hearing from them. So together with the ICC, we have launched what we call the ICC WTO Small Business Champions. So this is an initiative that we did together. We're inviting companies and private sector organizations, and it's restricted right now only to private sector initiatives. We have invited them to put forward their proposals on how they can encourage and support SMEs to do business across borders. We've had a huge amount of interest from all over the world. We already are receiving proposals, we are examining them, and the first successful proposal was from Google. So a big corporation, but they are keen on helping micro, small businesses to thrive. And the second one was from the Union of Chambers of Commerce of the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. So that gives you a sense of the range of people who are involved in these initiatives, and I invite you all to disseminate this idea as well and to get involved. So there's more information about this on the website and on the leaflets that are available at the back of the room already, I hope. So, Mr. Chair, to conclude, I think we have built up some good momentum behind the MSME debate. If we look back just a few months ago, it's clear that the conversation has evolved very quickly. And I know that some members are keen to discuss MSME's issues at the 11th Ministerial Conference in Buenos Aires this coming December. Well, the friends of MSMEs themselves have tabled that proposal that you mentioned in your opening remarks. And some of those issues that I mentioned earlier today are contained in that document, like transparency, information gathering, and things like that. So I'm very happy that things that we had been talking about are actually at the forefront of your conversations. Look, if our membership sees a role for the WTO in the MSMEs discussions, I think this is very positive. They will, the only thing that I think is important is to bear in mind that what happens next depends on the members, depends on the proponents. They will need to decide what is it that they want to achieve by Buenos Aires and how they want to achieve that. And as with all issues that members want to discuss, I will be available to facilitate, to help, but the driving engine is the members. So I hope we will keep up with this dialogue, and I look forward to hearing from the outcomes of this conversation here. Working together, I'm sure that we can help the trading system to be more inclusive, and that the benefits of trade and of the system reach as many people as possible. So thank you very much for the invitation, for having me here. I wish you all a very successful and productive event, and I will be looking forward to hear from the results of your conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director General. Thank you very much for your introductory remarks and the information that you gave us. And thank you for your permanent help for the group to continue our work. Ahora vamos.
We're now going to move on to our first panel, which will be moderated by Ambassador José Luis Cancela, I think. One moment, please, says the moderator.
Okay. Perdón. Sí.
Yes, the first panel will be Asian experiences, and it will be moderated by the Ambassador of the People's Republic of China. Please, Ambassador. And I'd like to invite the other panelists to come up to the podium, please.
Gracias, Héctor. Bueno,